I remember the exact moment my childhood ended. I was 8 years old when my parents brought home the twins, Lily and Lucas. Standing in the pastel-painted nursery, my father's hand rested on my shoulder as we peered down at the two tiny bundles swaddled in matching blankets. "You're the big sister now, Maya," Dad said, his voice filled with pride. "These little ones are going to need you." I nodded eagerly, my chest puffing out with importance. At 8, those words sounded like an honor, not the burden they would become. It started innocently enough. "Maya, can you fetch a diaper?" Or "Maya, would you mind picking up those toys?" Small requests that made me feel helpful and needed. I'd dash around the house, completing these little missions with the satisfaction of someone contributing to something important. As months turned into years, those requests multiplied and expanded. By 10, I was preparing simple meals while Mom tended to the twins. At 11, I was watching them for just an hour while my parents ran errands, which inevitably stretched into 3 or 4. But Samantha invited me to her birthday party. I'd protest, already knowing the answer. "Your brother and sister need you here, Maya," Mom would say, not even looking up as she grabbed her purse. There will be other parties, but there never were other parties, not for me. My 12th birthday was a stark example of how different life had become. Mom bought a small cake from the grocery store. Dad gave me a second-hand book he'd found at a yard sale. We ate dinner, which I'd cooked, and then the twins needed their bath. A month later, when the twins turned 4, our backyard transformed into a carnival. There were balloon animals, face painting, a custom cake with their names spelled in colorful frosting, and 20 children from their preschool running around. The gift table nearly collapsed under the weight of brightly wrapped packages. After the guests left, I spent 3 hours cleaning up wrapping paper, cake crumbs, and party decorations while Lily and Lucas played with their new toys. When I finished, no one noticed. No one said thank you. By 13, I was essentially running our household. Each morning, I'd wake at 5:30 a.m. to prepare breakfast and pack lunches for everyone. I'd help the twins get dressed and walk them to elementary school before rushing to make it to my middle school classes on time. After school, I'd pick them up, help with their homework, start dinner, clean the house, and finally tackle my own schoolwork late into the night. My parents both worked full-time jobs and seemed to have collectively forgotten I was still a child too. My grades began to slip, but there was never time to study properly. While other kids my age were joining clubs and sports teams, I was learning how to unclog toilets and remove stains from carpet. When I turned 16, my parents called me into the kitchen for a family meeting. The twins weren't included, they never were when important decisions needed to be made. "Maya, we need to discuss something important," Dad said, his face unusually serious. Mom nodded beside him. "We're having some financial difficulties. We need you to get a job after school to help support the family." I blinked in surprise. "But what about my homework and taking care of Lily and Lucas?" "You'll still need to do those things," Mom said dismissively. "You can find a job with flexible hours." The next day, I applied at the small cafe 2 blocks from our house. The owner, Diane, hired me on the spot when I told her I could work every day after school. I started washing dishes, cleaning tables, and eventually serving customers. Every paycheck went straight to my parents, every single cent. When I asked if I could keep even a small amount for myself, my mother looked at me like I'd suggested burning down the house. "We feed you and put a roof over your head, Maya," she snapped. "The family needs this money." After weeks of building up courage, I finally confronted her again. "I'm working hard. I should at least get some pocket money." She glared at me, but finally agreed to give me $20 a week. The way she handed it over like she was doing me some enormous favor made it clear she thought I was being unreasonable. Despite working nearly 30 hours a week at the cafe, I was still expected to cook, clean, and take care of the twins. One evening, I dragged myself home after a particularly busy shift. My body ached, and all I wanted was to eat something and fall into bed. When I walked in, I found my parents and the twins sitting at the dinner table, all of them glaring at me. "What's going on?" I asked, dropping my backpack by the door. "We're hungry," Mom said accusingly. "You didn't make dinner." I stared at them, not comprehending what I was hearing. "I've been at school and then work all day." "That's no excuse," Dad chimed in. "You know dinner is your responsibility." Something snapped inside me. For the first time in my life, I raised my voice at them. Are you serious? I went to school, then worked for 6 hours straight. You're adults. The twins are 10. None of you could figure out how to make a sandwich? The shocked silence that followed my outburst was almost satisfying. Then Mom stood up, her face hardening into stone. Don't you dare speak to us that way. This is our house, and you will show respect. Go to your room. No dinner for you tonight. As I watched, Dad picked up the phone and ordered 2 pizzas for them and the twins. Not for me. I made myself a cup of tea, washed everyone's dishes after they'd eaten their pizza, and went to my room, my stomach growling throughout the night. My high school graduation should have been a milestone. Most of my classmates had parents throwing parties, buying them gifts, or planning for college. Me? I paid for my own graduation dress with the tiny bit of money I'd managed to save from my weekly allowance. The day of graduation, my parents showed up just before the ceremony started. They sat through the speeches and applauded politely when I walked across the stage to get my diploma. As soon as it ended, Mom checked her watch. We need to get going, she said as I approached them, diploma in hand. Lucas has a soccer game in an hour. And just like that, they were gone. I stood in my blue graduation dress among my celebrating classmates, completely alone. That night, while my classmates attended graduation parties, I worked my shift at the cafe. Diane, the owner, did a double take when she saw me arrive. Maya, isn't today your graduation? What are you doing here? I shrugged, tying my apron around my waist. I need the money. She watched me for a moment, her gaze thoughtful. You know, you're one of my best employees. Always on time, never complain. But you can't build a career in a small cafe like this. I looked up, not sure what to say. My cousin Javier owns a restaurant downtown, a real nice place. He's always looking for good staff, Diane continued, wiping down the counter. I could put in a word for you if you want. The pay's better too. 2 weeks later, I started at Javier's restaurant. The work was harder, the hours longer, but the tips were significantly better. My parents were thrilled when they saw my first paycheck, which of course I had to hand over to them. My routine changed, but the expectations didn't. Work all day, come home, cook, clean, sleep, repeat. Meanwhile, Lily and Lucas lounged on the couch, played video games, and did absolutely nothing to help. One evening, after a 10-hour shift, I came home to find dirty dishes piled in the sink and laundry scattered across the floor. Lily! Lucas! I called out, finding them sprawled in front of the TV. Could you guys please help me clean up? Lucas didn't even look away from his game. That's your job. I'm not your maid, I said, my patience wearing thin. You're 13 now. You can help around the house. Lily rolled her eyes. Mom says we don't have to. I brought it up with my parents that night, but the conversation went exactly as I expected. They're too young to worry about housework, Mom said, not looking up from her magazine. I was helping around the house when I was 8, I pointed out. Dad frowned. That was different. You were more mature. I wanted to scream. Instead, I just walked away, wondering how much longer I could live like this. 3 years passed in the same exhausting pattern. I worked at Javier's restaurant, giving almost all my money to my parents. I kept just enough to buy necessities clothes when my old ones wore out, a new phone when my ancient one finally died. I was good at my job, really good. The customers liked me, the other staff respected me, and Javier noticed. One slow afternoon, he called me into his office. I was afraid I'd done something wrong, but he was smiling when I came in. Maya, he said, leaning back in his chair. How long do you want to be a waitress? The question caught me off guard. I don't know. I haven't really thought about it. I've been watching you. You've memorized every dish on the menu. You know which wines pair with which meals. I've seen you eyeing the kitchen, watching the chefs work. I felt my face grow hot. I'm just curious about the cooking. Javier nodded. That's what I thought. Listen, I've got a proposal for you. I'm willing to pay for cooking courses. You could train to be a chef and work in my kitchen. The pay is better. The hours more regular. What do you think? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. No one had ever invested in me before. No one had ever offered me a path forward. That night, I practically floated home. For the first time, I had something that was mine, a potential future that I could see and touch. I couldn't wait to tell my parents. During dinner, which I'd cooked as usual, I shared my news. Javier offered to pay for me to take cooking courses, I said, unable to keep the excitement from my voice. I could become a chef at the restaurant. I expected congratulations. What I got was a frown from my mother. What about your hours here at home? She asked. Who's going to cook and clean while you're at these classes? My excitement deflated like a punctured balloon. I'd still help out. The classes would just be a few nights a week. We rely on you, Maya, Dad said, as if I didn't know that. The house doesn't run itself. I looked at Lily and Lucas, now 16, perfectly capable of helping but never asked to. Something hardened inside me. I'm taking the courses, I said firmly. This is important to me. My parents exchanged glances but didn't argue further. They could see I wasn't backing down. The cooking courses were intense but exhilarating. For the first time in my life, I was doing something purely for myself. I learned knife skills, sauce techniques, how to balance flavors. I excelled in every class. At work, I made a friend, Nadia, a waitress who started around the same time I began my courses. She was funny, outspoken, and didn't take crap from anyone. So you live with your parents? She asked one day during our break. Yeah, with my younger brother and sister too. And you pay rent? I shifted uncomfortably. Not exactly. I give them most of my paycheck. Nadia's eyebrows shot up. Most? Like how much? Almost all of it. I keep just enough for basic stuff. And you cook and clean for them too? While working full-time and taking these classes? When she put it like that, it sounded absurd. I tried to explain our family dynamic, how I'd always been expected to help out, how my siblings were different. Nadia listened, her expression growing more horrified with each word. Maya, she said when I finished, that's not normal. That's not okay. Your family is taking advantage of you. They're my family, I said weakly. So what? Family is supposed to support each other, not use one person as a personal servant and ATM. She leaned forward. You need to get out of there. Live your own life. I laughed it off, but her words stuck with me. Was I really being taken advantage of? Was what my family asked of me truly that unreasonable? I didn't have to wait long for the answer. The twins' 17th birthday arrived with all the fanfare I'd come to expect. Mom ordered a custom cake shaped like a video game controller for Lucas and decorated with ballet slippers for Lily. Dad hung streamers and balloons throughout the house. They invited 20 of the twins' friends, ordered catering, and spent weeks planning the perfect gifts. I was scheduled to work that day not by accident. Over the years, I'd learned to volunteer for shifts during family celebrations. It hurt less to be absent than to be present but invisible. My shift at the restaurant was busy, which was a blessing. The constant movement kept my mind occupied, away from thoughts of what was happening at home. By the time I clocked out, I was exhausted but hungry. I hadn't had a chance to eat during my shift. When I got home, the party was winding down. A few of the twins' friends were still hanging around. Music was playing, and the house looked like a tornado had hit it. I slipped in through the kitchen door, hoping to grab some food before tackling the mess. I filled a plate with leftover pizza and took a seat at the kitchen table. Just as I was about to take my first bite, Mom walked in. Oh good, you're home, she said, pulling the plate away from me. The kids made a mess in the living room. Can you start cleaning up? I stared at her, my empty stomach clenching. Mom, I haven't eaten all day. I just want to have something first. The guests are about to leave. I need you to clean now. Her tone left no room for argument. I felt something inside me shift. I'm hungry. I'm going to eat first. Mom's eyes narrowed. Maya, now. I reached for my plate, but she snatched it away completely. Now, Maya. The dishes can wait until after you've cleaned. That was the exact moment when something in me broke. I stood up slowly, looking my mother directly in the eyes. I've been working all day, I said, my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. I'm going to eat first. Before she could respond, Dad walked in with Lily and Lucas trailing behind him, all smiles and excitement. Look what we got. Lucas held up the newest smartphone model, one that had just been released and cost nearly $1,000. And we both got laptops too, Lily added, beaming. The new MacBooks. I looked from their expensive gifts to my empty stomach to the mess I was expected to clean, and something just snapped. "Congratulations," I said, my voice louder than intended. "When do you two start working after school?" The room went silent. Lily and Lucas looked at me like I'd grown a second head. "What?" Lucas asked. "Working, jobs. Like I've been doing since I was 16. I looked at my parents. "When do they start contributing to the family?" My parents exchanged glances, and then, unbelievably, they smiled. "Maya," Dad said in a condescending tone, "your brother and sister have bright futures ahead of them. They need to focus on school, not work." "And I didn't have a bright future?" I asked, my voice cracking. Mom put her arm around Lily's shoulders. "They deserve the best. Your duty is to work and help your family." There it was, plain as day. My siblings deserved the best. I deserve duty. "I see," I said quietly. Mom nodded, satisfied. "Good. Now please start cleaning up. The living room is a disaster." I went to the sink and began washing dishes mechanically, while behind me, my family started sorting through gifts and planning a vacation one that, as usual, didn't include me. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake staring at my ceiling, thinking about everything Nadia had said, everything I'd experienced, everything I finally understood with perfect clarity. Nothing was going to change, not unless I changed it. By morning, my decision was made. I waited until everyone left Mom and Dad to work, Lily and Lucas to school. Then I packed my belongings into 2 suitcases and a backpack. It didn't take long. After 23 years in this house, I had shockingly little to show for it. I called Nadia, praying she'd answer. "Hey, what's up?" Her voice was cheerful. "Remember when you said I should leave my parents' house?" My voice was shaking. There was a pause. "Yeah, I'm doing it. Today. Right now. But I need somewhere to go. Holy Maya, come to my place. I've got a spare bedroom." "You can stay as long as you need." I hung up, took one last look around my bedroom, and walked out. I didn't leave a note. Why bother? They'd figure it out when they came home to a dirty house and no dinner. The taxi driver helped me load my bags. As we pulled away from the house I'd lived in my entire life, I expected to feel something: sadness, regret, nostalgia. But all I felt was relief. Nadia was waiting for me when the taxi pulled up to her apartment building. She rushed out to help with my bags, hugging me fiercely once we got everything inside. "I'm so proud of you," she said. "This is a big step." Her apartment was small but cozy, decorated with colorful throws and posters from concerts she'd attended. The spare room had just enough space for a bed and a small dresser, but it was more than enough. "I'll pay rent," I said as I unpacked my clothes. "Half, or whatever's fair." Nadia nodded. "We'll figure it out. No rush." We went to work together that afternoon. I felt lighter, like I'd shed a heavy coat I'd been wearing for years. Javier noticed the change immediately. "You look different today," he said when I arrived at the restaurant. I smiled. I moved out of my parents' house. He raised an eyebrow but didn't press for details. "Good for you. Ready for your shift?" By the time we finished work that evening, my phone had 20 missed calls from my parents. I showed Nadia. "You going to answer?" she asked. "Not yet." We stopped at a liquor store on the way home and bought a bottle of cheap red wine. Back at the apartment, we sat on her tiny balcony, drinking from mismatched mugs and toasting to my freedom. At 10 p.m., my phone rang again. My mother's name flashed on the screen. "I should answer," I said, staring at the phone. "Just to get it over with." Nadia nodded encouragingly. I took a deep breath and hit accept. "Hello? Where the hell are you?" My mother's voice was shrill with panic and anger. "The house is a mess. There's no dinner. We've been calling for hours." "I moved out," I said calmly. There was a beat of silence. "What do you mean, moved out?" I packed my things and left. "I'm not coming back." "Don't be ridiculous," she snapped. "You can't just leave. Who's going to cook and clean? Who's going to— You could try doing it yourself," I interrupted. "Or maybe Lily and Lucas could help, since they're the same age I was when I started working." "Maya," her tone changed, becoming conciliatory. "Come home. We need to talk about this properly." "No," I said and hung up. The calls and texts continued for hours. I turned off my phone. "How do you feel?" Nadia asked as we finished the wine. I thought about it. Freya, scared, guilty, relieved. All of it at once. She clinked her mug against mine. That sounds about right. The next day, my parents were waiting outside the restaurant when my shift ended. I'd been expecting them. Nadia offered to stay, but I told her to go ahead. This was something I needed to handle alone. They approached as soon as they spotted me. Mom looked like she'd been crying. Dad looked angry. "Maya, we need to talk," Dad said, trying to take my arm. I stepped back. "What about?" Mom's face crumpled. "We've thought everything over, sweetheart. We realize we've been putting too much pressure on you, making you do too much work. We want you to come home. We'll make changes, I promise." I looked at them both, really looked at them, their worried expressions, their pleading eyes, and something about it rang false. "Tell me," I said slowly, "are you more upset that I'm gone, or that my paycheck is gone?" Mom's face changed. Just for a second, but it was enough. "That's not fair. We're your family. We're counting on your salary." There it was. The truth. "I'm not coming back," I said, and turned to walk away. "You selfish girl," Mom called after me. "After everything we've done for you." I kept walking, their words fading behind me. A year passed quickly. I lived with Nadia, paid my share of the rent, and saved the rest of my money. Working as a chef brought me more satisfaction than I'd ever known creating dishes. Seeing customers enjoy my food, being valued for my skills rather than taken for granted. I'd almost forgotten about my family when my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Hello, Maya? It's Mom. I nearly hung up." "What do you want?" "We need to talk about the twins' college tuition," she said, her voice all business. "They'll be starting college next fall. We need your help paying for it." The audacity was breathtaking. "You're joking, right? This isn't funny. Maya, family helps family. You need to contribute." "Like how you helped me with college?" I asked. "Oh wait, you didn't. That was different," she insisted. "The twins have real potential. I'd spent years trying to please this woman. Years believing I was somehow less deserving than my siblings. But not anymore. I'm not paying for their college," I said firmly. "I'm not giving you another cent. Ever." "You selfish, ungrateful. I've been supporting this family since I was 16. I cut her off. "I cooked, cleaned, and gave you almost every dollar I earned. You never thanked me, never appreciated me, never treated me like I mattered. I'm done." She launched into a tirade about family obligation and how I was letting everyone down. "Goodbye, Mom," I said and hung up. I blocked her number, then changed my own for good measure. Whatever connection had remained between us was finally, completely severed. 2 months after that final call, I found my own apartment. It was small, just a studio with a kitchenette and bathroom, but it was mine. Nadia helped me move in, and we celebrated with takeout on my secondhand furniture. "To independence," she toasted, raising her soda can. "To choosing myself," I replied. My journey to freedom had been long and painful, but as I looked around at my new space, modest as it was, I felt a profound sense of accomplishment. Every item in this apartment was mine, chosen by me, paid for with money I had earned and kept for myself. The cooking courses Javier had sponsored were nearly complete, and he'd already promoted me to line cook. My skills were growing daily, and customers had begun to specifically request dishes I had prepared. For the first time in my life, I was being recognized for my talents rather than my utility. 6 months after moving into my studio apartment, I received an unexpected visitor at the restaurant. I was focused on plating a delicate fish dish when Javier approached the line. "Maya, there's someone asking to see you." I glanced up, hands steady as I arranged microgreens in a perfect pattern. "Who is it?" Javier hesitated. "He says he's your brother." The garnish slipped from my fingers. "Lucas is here? Want me to tell him you're busy?" I considered it for a moment, then shook my head. "No, I'll see him. Can you cover for me for 15 minutes? I wiped my hands on my apron and stepped out into the dining area. Lucas was sitting at the bar, looking uncomfortable in the upscale setting. At 17, he had grown taller than when I'd last seen him, his face losing some of its boyish roundness. "Lucas," I said, sliding onto the stool beside him, "this is a surprise." He turned to me, eyes widening slightly as he took in my chef's whites. "You look different." "It's been a year," he nodded, fiddling with a napkin. "Yeah, how did you find me?" "Diane at the cafe told me where you worked. I tried calling, but your number changed." I waited, letting the silence stretch between us. Finally, he spoke again. "Things are different at home now," he said quietly. "After you left, I didn't realize how much you did until you weren't there anymore." "That was the point," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. Lucas winced. "Mom and Dad tried to make Lily and me do all the stuff you used to do. We were terrible at it. Couldn't cook, didn't know how to do laundry properly." Dad's shirts turned pink. A small smile flickered across his face, then disappeared. "They fought a lot. About money, about chores, about you. I'm not coming back if that's why you're here." "No, that's not." He looked down at his hands. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I never realized. I never thought about how unfair it all was. The apology caught me off guard. I'd expected accusations, pleas for help, maybe even manipulation to get me to contribute financially again. Not this." "Mom and Dad sent you, didn't they?" I asked, skepticism edging my voice. Lucas shook his head firmly. "They don't know I'm here. They'd be furious if they found out." He hesitated. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said that night, about when we'd start contributing." "You were right. So I got a job at the mall. Part-time." I raised an eyebrow, genuinely surprised. "Good for you. It's not much, but it's something. I'm saving for college, too." Lily's been doing some babysitting. I felt a complex mix of emotions: pride that my brother was growing up, sadness for all the years I'd lost, and a lingering anger that it had taken my departure for any of them to recognize their own responsibilities. "I should get back to work," I said, sliding off the stool. Lucas nodded quickly. "Right, sorry. I just wanted to see you, and to tell you that I understand now, at least a little bit." As he stood to leave, I surprised myself by asking, "Do you want to come over for dinner sometime? I have an apartment now. It's small, but I'd like that," he said, a genuine smile spreading across his face. I scribbled my new number on a napkin. "Here, let me know when you're free." After Lucas left, I returned to the kitchen, my mind spinning with unexpected possibilities. Could there be some kind of relationship worth salvaging there? I wasn't sure, but the idea that at least one member of my family had gained some perspective gave me a strange sense of closure. 2 weeks later, Lucas visited my apartment. He brought a small potted herb plant as a gift basil, perfect for a chef. We cooked together, or rather, I cooked while he attempted to help, asking questions about techniques and ingredients with genuine curiosity. "I tried to make pasta last week," he admitted as we sat down to eat. "It was a disaster. The sauce burned, and the noodles turned to mush." I laughed. "My first attempts weren't great either. But you were cooking full meals when you were like, what, 12? "I had to learn fast," I said simply. Lucas looked down at his plate. "I'm sorry about that, about all of it." I studied my brother's face, seeing remorse but also a new awareness that hadn't been there before. "It wasn't your fault. We were kids. It was Mom and Dad who created that dynamic. Still, I could have helped more." I nodded, acknowledging the truth of that. "So, tell me about school. What are your plans after graduation?" As Lucas talked about his interest in computer science, I felt something shift between us. Not forgiveness exactly, the wounds were still too fresh for that, but possibility. Maybe this one relationship could be rebuilt on new, healthier ground. After that night, Lucas visited regularly, sometimes bringing Lily, who was more reserved but seemed genuinely interested in reconnecting. They never asked for money or tried to pressure me into helping with family expenses. Instead, they shared stories about learning to do their own laundry, cooking basic meals, and the changing dynamics at home. "Dad's working overtime now," Lily told me during one visit. "Mom took a second job on weekends. They barely talk anymore except to argue about bills." I felt a pang of something, not quite guilt, but a complex sadness for the unraveling of the family structure, even as I recognized that structure had been fundamentally broken all along. "And how are you handling it?" I asked. Lily shrugged. "It's hard sometimes, but I keep thinking about what Lucas told me, about how you were doing all that stuff when you were even younger than we are. It makes me realize we can figure it out too." The twins' graduation approached, and to my surprise, they invited me to attend. I hesitated, knowing my parents would be there, but ultimately decided to go for Lily and Lucas, not for my parents. The high school gymnasium was decorated with blue and gold streamers, crowded with proud families clutching bouquets and balloons. I slipped in just as the ceremony was beginning, taking a seat near the back, far from where I spotted my parents in the front row. Watching Lucas and Lily walk across the stage to receive their diplomas stirred complicated emotions: pride for their accomplishment, wistfulness for my own graduation day, which had ended with such emptiness, relief that I wasn't responsible for their futures anymore. After the ceremony, I lingered in the back, debating whether to approach them in the crowd. The decision was made for me when Lucas spotted me and waved enthusiastically, pulling Lily through the throng toward me. "You came!" Lily hugged me, something she'd never done before my departure. "Congratulations, both of you," I said, genuinely happy for them. "We're having a small celebration at Rosario's Pizza," Lucas said. "Would you come?" "Just us, not Mom and Dad." I hesitated. "Are they okay with that?" The twins exchanged glances. "They don't exactly know we've been visiting you," Lily admitted. "But we're adults now. We can have dinner with our sister if we want to." The three of us slipped away to the pizza place, where we talked more freely than ever before. Lucas had received a partial scholarship to the State University for computer science. Lily had decided to start at community college, unsure yet of her path but determined to figure it out for herself. "How are you paying for it?" I asked carefully, still wary of any financial discussion that might lead back to my parents' expectations. "I've been saving from my job," Lucas said, "and I got a student loan for the rest." Dad's not happy about it, but he shrugged. "It's my future, not his. I'm working full-time this summer before classes start," Lily added. "And I applied for some scholarships, too." I felt a swell of pride, seeing them take responsibility for their own futures instead of expecting others to shoulder the burden. "I have something for you both," I said, pulling out 2 envelopes from my bag. "Not money," I clarified quickly. "Something else." They opened the envelopes to find gift certificates, cooking classes at a recreational culinary school downtown. "Really?" Lily looked surprised. "Everyone should know how to cook for themselves," I said. "Plus, it's fun when you're doing it because you want to, not because you have to." Their genuine gratitude for such a simple gift touched me deeply. As we were leaving the restaurant, I spotted my parents walking toward the entrance. They froze when they saw me with the twins, expressions shifting rapidly from shock to anger. "What is this?" Mom demanded, looking at Lucas and Lily accusingly. "We're having story 2. I never imagined that I would reach this point in my life. Yet here I am, Audrey, at the age of 28, living my dream at last." "Okay, in a way, the mortgage payments make me cringe every month, and the flat I recently purchased still needs some attention. However, it belongs to me, mine alone. I have something to show for my 6 years of hard work in real estate. It wasn't simple to get here. I recall working 2 jobs to make ends meet in the early days after receiving my license. I would attempt to seem more confident than I actually was when I showed houses to prospective buyers during the day. After that, I would dash to my managerial evening job in a corporate office, where I would labor through monotonous paperwork until my eyes burned. However, I persisted, expanding my clientele one transaction at a time. I sometimes wish my father could see me now that I'm living alone in my new home. He never stopped believing in me. I always claimed that I would succeed. However, he was never able to witness it. He died in the midst of my first year of college when I was 18. Everything changed at that point. And not only due of his passing, within a year, Mom got married again. At first glance, Tom appeared to be a decent person, but he had baggage. Mike and Sarah, 2 children, were 14 and 15 years old at the time. I made an effort to be sympathetic. I did, really. After Dad's death, Mom deserved to be content. Tom, however, thought differently about how things ought to be. "This place has to be updated," he said. Just 3 months after moving in, one day, he was painting over the walls when I got home from the weekend at college. Together, Dad and I had decorated. Dad's pictures were all gone, somewhere packed up. I was unable to locate them. "Where are the photos of Dad?" Trying to stabilize my kid, I asked Mom that night. She hardly raised her gaze from the magazine. "Oh, sweetheart." It may be uncomfortable, Tom thought. "You get it? Correct. We must proceed." It wasn't only the pictures, though. The room where I grew up was converted into Sarah and Mike's game room. They set up a computer and, of all things, a slot machine. My room, my memories supplanted by their incessant laughing and beeping equipment. During your visit, you are welcome to utilize the guest room, brightly as though she were doing me a favor, Mom said. There was almost enough space in the guest room for a bed and a tiny table, but I had nothing to say. I was only the daughter who was visiting. Right now, Mike and Sarah were quite clear that they did not want me around. There was always a fresh accident when I got home from college. My old stuffed animals were discovered in the garbage, and my name was inexplicably removed from all of the family pictures on the walls of my high school yearbooks that were suddenly water damaged. After then, life fell into a rhythm. After graduating from college and beginning my work, I made an effort to keep up a contact with my mother. I tried, but our phone conversations become fewer and shorter. During the claustrophobic guest room and the barely disguised animosity from my step-siblings, I would drop by every few weeks. Look who at last realized we were here. Sarah's voice would be brimming with phony sweetness. She was still living at home at the age of 25. I'm still being treated like an unwelcome visitor. Mike wasn't any better at 24. He makes disparaging remarks about my life, my career, my wardrobe, and whatever else he can use as fodder. Tom, on the other hand, would sit there grinning smugly and occasionally make small jabs of his own. Property, he would say during supper. Playing home all day must be enjoyable. There are some of us who have actual employment. Mom would sit silently, acting as though she was unaware of the strain. She seemed to have fully vanished into their family, leaving no space for me. I made an effort to ignore it and get over it. I concentrated on developing my profession and my personal life. My clientele expanded. My commission checks increased in size. And I began to establish myself in the local real estate market, little by little. But then there was that meal, that terrible last straw meal. That evening, Sarah was in her rare form, attacking everything from my hair to the wine I had selected. I gritted my teeth and waited there until she went too far. It must be pleasant. She said, "You can start in real estate with Mommy's connections. In fact, some of us must work to make a livelihood." Something broke inside of me. 10 years of keeping my mouth shut and enduring their abuse spilt forth. Make a living by working. Even to my own ears, the sound of my laughter was unpleasant. From someone who is almost 30 years old and still relies on her father's income? That's a lot of money. How long has it been since you last searched for a job? The ensuing hush was deafening. With tears streaming down her cheeks, Sarah fled the table. Tom rose, his face flushed with rage. "You tiny brat! You're horrible!" He spit. "You have no right to talk like that to my daughter." I looked to my mother in the maybe naive hope that she would finally defend me. She shook her head instead. She had disappointment on her face. "Audrey, I'm shocked that you would say anything so hurtful. I did not raise you that way." I came to the realization that nothing will ever change. Every time Mom would pick them over me. Always. I was crying as I left my mother's house that evening. They weren't sad tears, though. They were ones that were furious. In my life, for the first time, I felt finished. Stop attempting to win over everyone. It's time to stop being cautious. Don't act like this is normal any longer. Mom's side of the family bombarded my phone with texts the next morning, all of them expressing how awful I felt for offending Sarah. She had been mistreating me for years, but none of them brought it up. They all don't seem to give a damn about how I feel. "This time, you've really done it," Mom sent an SMS. "I'm not sure what's bothering you, but I believe it would be best if you didn't come over until you apologized to Sarah and Tom." I took a long time to look at the message before I typed my reply. "I won't, so don't worry." The ensuing weeks were fairly quiet. I put all of my effort into clinching transaction after contract. My commission check was proof that my clients adored me. I started looking at new automobiles because I'd always desired a certain model, not because I needed to brag. I felt like a new person the day I pulled my Mercedes off the lot. More self-assured, more prosperous, more of me. I couldn't help but snap some pictures and share them online. I was unprepared for what transpired after the flood of likes and comments. My phone rang. The screen showed Mom's name. I hadn't heard from her in 3 months, but now she was phoning. She kept calling, but I initially put it on voicemail. I picked up at last. "Hi there, Audrey, my love." She had a lovely, syrupy voice. "You've been on my mind a lot recently. This scenario has to be fixed immediately. How about we have supper together tomorrow? I nearly burst out laughing. Silence for 3 months. And she wanted to make things right after I shared pictures of my new Mercedes. I don't think that's a smart idea. Mom, honey, please. I spoke with Tom and the children. Everything makes them feel awful. Everybody wants to put things right. I ought to have declined. I ought to have realized it. However, there was a part of me that wanted to trust her, that foolish, idealistic part that never seemed to learn. I drove up to my new automobile and my old residence the next evening. When Tom spotted the Mercedes, I believe his eyes about burst out of his head as he stood in the driveway. In the doorway came Mike and Sarah, both with looks I had never seen before. Something in the middle of calculating and respect. Take a look at this person! Mom came running to give me a hug. We've missed you terribly, my love. It was a bizarre meal. Tom praised my professional decisions. Sarah was genuinely interested in my clients and inquired about them. Even my chair was pushed out for me by Mike. In between classes, I had the impression that I had entered a parallel reality where people genuinely loved me. I was pulled aside in the kitchen by Mom. I spoke with them for a long time. She squeezed my arm and murmured, "They acknowledged their mistakes. They wished to make a new beginning. I wished to trust her. How, God? I wished to trust her. And it appeared genuine for a time. I began going more frequently. The nasty joke came to an end. The mocking remarks vanished. All of a sudden, they were curious in my life, career, and achievements. But then I began to see trends. Without fail, the topic of their living predicament would come up with every visit. At first, it was subtle. Simply said, "This ancient house has changed," Tom would say, giving me a serious look. "Last week, the roof began to leak once more. The heating expenditures are getting out of control," Mom would say. Mike and Sarah would add their own grievances. Outdated, with little storage space and toilets. Everything. Every time they would gaze at me with anticipation, anticipating something. Every time this occurred, I made an effort to shift the topic, but they persisted. My mother once followed me to my car as I was leaving one evening. She ran a hand over the Mercedes hood and murmured, "You know, honey, now you're doing well. Having such a luxurious life must be amazing." It made my skin crawl when she stressed comfort. I put the idea aside, even though I was beginning to see why they had suddenly been so kind to me. After all, they were family. Perhaps they had changed after all. Then her mother revealed that she will soon be 55. She brought it up casually over coffee, but the way everyone looked at me was anything but casual. "It's a significant milestone," she stated. "I've been considering the appropriate way to celebrate it." I fell for the ruse. "Mom, don't worry about making any plans. I will handle everything." I should have been alerted by the glance that went back and forth between her and Tom. There should have been warning signs when Sarah and Mike suddenly developed a strong obsession with their phones. However, I continued to ignore all the indications because I was so determined to believe in this new version of our family. After throwing a lavish party at my friend Rachel's fancy restaurant in the heart of the city, I made the decision to take the entire family on a surprise trip to Hawaii. I felt sick at the idea of paying for Tom, Sarah, and Mike's vacation, but I convinced myself that it was worth it to please my mother. My main focus shifted to organizing Mom's birthday party. I immediately gave Rachel a call. I told her that I wanted everything to be flawless. Money is not a problem. Rachel's enthusiasm was infectious. "Honey, let me do it. My friends and relatives will receive a discount from me. But believe me, this will be a memorable occasion." She would be correct, if only she realized it. I felt a little sad when my mother emailed me her guest list. 25 of the 30 were related to Tom. Looking for names I knew from Dad's side of the family, I scanned down the list. I was once looked after by Aunt Susan, not present. I learned how to ride a bike from Uncle Jack. I miss my cousin Emma, who I grew up thinking of as a sister. Not a trace. Without informing my mother, I put them on the list. They are deserving, even if she hadn't thought of them. Susan became silent for a second when I called out to her to join us. "Sweetheart, are you certain?" she inquired. "Your mother made it quite evident that we were no longer welcome the last time I visited her." "I'm positive." I spoke aggressively. "My family also includes you." I went to Mom's place the next week to talk over the specifics of the celebration. As soon as I entered, Sarah cornered me. So, she began, making a vain attempt to appear informal. You're giving Mom the restaurant party as a gift. Mom gave her a warning glance, but I decided to ignore it. I said, that's part of it, I'm planning something different. Unexpectedly. My first hint should have been the way they all jumped when I said surprise. Mike abruptly became highly engaged in the discourse when Tom and Mom exchanged glances. Unexpectedly, a mother leaned forward. What sort of a surprise, my love? I simply shook my head and grinned. You will need to wait and find out. The hour that followed was agonizing. They alternated in attempting to get information out of me while giving me more and more overt clues regarding residences. Tom showed me every small repair that needed to be done around the house. Mom let out a loud sigh at how claustrophobic everything seemed. Mike and Sarah joined together to gripe about having to use the same loo. Tom pointed to a water stain on the ceiling and remarked, You know, Audrey, with your real estate knowledge. You must be well informed about suitable housing options. I gave a vague nod. At the moment, the market is rather busy. You and other effective agents need to have a wide range of contacts, Mom added, looking at me thoughtfully. I acted as though I didn't grasp what they were saying. Yes, I have a strong network. It does assist with sales, yes. Sales? Sarah whispered to herself. Correct. They circled closer and closer to what they truly desired as the evening continued in this manner. Reminding myself that it would all be worthwhile, I continued to deflect. When they noticed the surprise from Hawaii, then perhaps they would see how much I valued family, not in the manner they had anticipated. On the evening of Mom's birthday celebration, Rachel had gone above and above. With its exquisite floral arrangements, gentle lighting, and immaculately laid tables, the restaurant exuded a sense of wonder. I got there early to make sure everything was in order, including the Hawaii surprise package, first-class airline tickets, and family resort bookings. First chances, Dad's family came up and gave me a strong embrace while whispering, You've developed into a very amazing woman. Your dad would be very pleased. I suppressed my tears. Regards, Aunt Susan. I'm so happy you're here. Loud laughing and stronger comments filled the restaurant as Tom's relatives arrived in a boisterous bunch. They essentially pushed Dad's family to the sidelines by claiming the nicest tables. I bit my tongue as I watched things unfold. Instead than focusing on old issues, tonight was meant to be about family healing. Sarah, Tom, Mike, and Mom all showed there fashionably late. Although Mom looked stunning in her new outfit, there was something strange about the way she gazed around the room, particularly when she saw Dad's family. Why are they in this place? As I gave her a hug, she snarled at me. They're moms to the family. They wanted to join you in celebrating. Sister Janet began the toast to my amazing brother Tom before she could say anything. She gave me a glance that I couldn't quite decipher. Who gave this family a good guy to rely on and rescued them? Janet lifted her glass. At these statements, I saw Dad's family members tense up. Uncle Jack shook her head slightly and stroked his arm as if he wanted to say something. As the toast went on, Tom's family members took turns complimenting him and his kids and remarking on what a wonderful family they had grown into. Mom smiled proudly while I grew more and more nauseous. It was my time at last. Holding the exquisitely wrapped package with the Hawaii surprise inside, I got to my feet. Mom? I began, my voice trembling a little. You've always shown a desire to travel and experience new things. I wanted to get you something unique for your birthday. I gave the package to her. She accepted it with a peculiar look. As she opened it, she felt more like distrust than joy. There was silence in the room. Mom gazed at the brochures for the resort and the airline tickets. She was getting darker every second. What is meant to be this? It is. The family is on vacation. I clarified, perplexed by her response. Hawaii first-class tickets. All of your expenditures were covered during your 2 weeks at a 5-star resort. I had never seen an explosion like the one that followed. A trip. Mom spoke in a chilly tone. We desire a vacation, don't you think? Tom rose, his face flushed with rage. After all of our clues, this is what you call a birthday present. So, even though I was beginning to grasp with terrible clarity, I repeated. Then Sarah leaped to her feet. For months, we have been telling you what Mom truly want in a home. She desired a home. You are self-centered and foolish. Which one? There was silence in the diner. Standing close to the bar, Rachel watched in terror. A home? What I was hearing was unbelievable. Did you think I would purchase you a home? Mom remarked, her voice brimming with sadness. We thought you understood. All of those discussions on our living arrangement. What made you so stupid? I surveyed the space. While Dad's family sat in stunned silence, Tom's family was nodding in agreement. I tried to speak steadily and slowly as I said, I'm a real estate agent. I sell homes. They're not given away for free by me. I spent money on this vacation because it is a fortune. Tom laughed. Please, we've seen your vehicle. We are aware that you can afford more than an inexpensive trip. I lost it at that point. Could you please have security escort these people out? I went to Rachel and said, This is impossible. 2 security officers came up and Mom screamed, My birthday is being celebrated. I took the ticket box out of her hands. No more, it isn't. And none of it is fair to you. Chaos ensued. As they were released, insults were thrown by Tom's relatives. Sarah cried out that I had always envied their ideal family. Mike gave me every nickname he could come up with. Mom simply shook her head in disdain as she stood there. The restaurant was strangely silent after they had departed. Uncle Jack then stated, I think it's time we remembered the real man of this family. As he got to his feet and lifted his glass. To the amazing father, David Mitchell, who would have been extremely proud of his daughter. I felt like I was with my actual family again for the first time in years, as we spent the remainder of the evening telling stories about Dad. Surprisingly, the 2 weeks after the birthday catastrophe were quiet. As if nothing had occurred, I plunged myself into my business, showing clients residences and closing agreements. However, everything was different now. I felt really free for the first time in my life. Free from the burden to prove myself to those who would never accept me, the guilt, and the manipulation. My phone was eerily silent. Mom didn't call. Neither Mike nor Sarah texted. Tom didn't leave any irate voicemails. I relished the stillness even though I knew it wouldn't last. I became closer to Dad's side of the family at this period, and he asked me home for Sunday dinners, the same as when I was younger. One evening when we were sipping tea on her veranda, she commented, You know, Catherine was your father's constant concern. Your mother. He said that she required too much attention from others. He feared that one day it might harm you. I gazed into my cup of tea. He was correct. I only wish I had noticed it earlier. After the party, I immediately canceled all of the reservations for Hawaii. I planned another vacation using it. For Dad's relatives who had stayed with me that night, I had arranged a week-long Mediterranean cruise. I persisted even though they initially attempted to deny. My phone rang as I was in the process of making reservations for their trip. The screen displayed Mom's number. Something told me that I should listen to whatever she had to say, so I almost didn't respond. Hi there? I spoke in a neutral tone. Audrey. Mom's voice was controlled and tight. Just business, no affection, no apologies. We must discuss what transpired. She didn't go on, so I waited. How about it? First of all, you made us seem bad in front of everyone. But we can talk about that later. We have a more urgent problem now. I allowed her to carry on even though I could tell where this was leading. Yesterday, Mike was involved in an automobile accident. It's nothing major, but the repairs will cost a lot of money. We assumed I interrupted her with a giggle since you're doing so well. I was unable to resist. It was almost remarkable how bold they were. I want to clarify this, I said. You're phoning me to want money, not to express regret for what transpired on your birthday? Audrey, don't be so emotional. Family is helpful. Family. Speaking of assistance, you might at least reimburse us for the money you would have spent on your Hawaii trip since you had to cancel it. It's just. With my phone clamped to my ear, I listened to my mother's requests at my home office with an odd feeling of clarity. Suddenly, everything made sense. The birthday catastrophe, the years of manipulation, and the unexpected generosity after witnessing my accomplishment. Family has never been a factor. What they could obtain from me had always been the focus. I interrupted her diatribe about family responsibilities by whispering, Mom, that money was used by me. I'm planning a Mediterranean cruise for Dad's family. There was an overwhelming quiet on the other end. Her voice was shaking with anger when she finally spoke. "You dare? You no longer consider those folks to be your true family. Your mommy is me. Are we members of your family?" "No," I said in a voice, steady. "Ever since you decided to side with Tom and his children instead of me, you have not been a part of my family. You watched as they occupied the house where I grew up and removed any traces of my father, whereas they saw me as an unwelcome visitor. You did nothing as they harassed and denigrated me for years. That is untrue. You were always liked by me. Mom, love is insufficient. I wasn't protected by you. You failed to defend me. You allowed them to force me to leave my own family. The only reason you want me around now is because you believe I can buy you stuff. What specifically have you done for me after everything that I have done for you?" I inquired. "What have you really done to support or assist me since Dad passed away?" I made the effort to attend college. My career was developed by myself. I purchased my own house. You are only interested in my life when you are trying to get something out of me. At that moment, she began to cry. However, I've witnessed this act far too often. Your mommy is me. You can't simply leave me. Mom, I won't leave you. I'm releasing myself at last. I can no longer be a part of your life, yet I don't mean any damage. You, Tom, Sarah, Mike, I'm not in charge of you. Take care of your own issues. Go about your own life. Please don't involve me. I blocked their numbers after hanging up. Each and every one. After that, I sat there for a while, examining the pictures on my desk. One of myself and my father smiling at the camera at my high school graduation. A new one from the evening of Mom's birthday celebration, and another of Aunt Susan and Uncle Jack at Christmas last year. Dad's family is here with me, and we are all lifting our glasses in his honor. My people were these. My actual family was this. I went to work as usual the following day. I arranged my family's Mediterranean trip, negotiated transactions, and showed homes to customers. Life continued, but now it was different. Better, lighter. I often wonder if my mother really realized what she had lost. She desired something far more precious than cash, presents, or a magnificent home. A daughter who, had she been a true mother in return, would have done anything for her. I no longer think about it, though. I've discovered that family isn't about blood, duty, or maintaining appearances. It has to do with acceptance, love, and support. It has to do with those that support you without asking anything in return. It's about supporting one another out of a desire to do so rather than out of obligation. Story 3. I got the email that made all the difference 3 years ago. I recall reading the sentences with trembling hands while gazing at my computer screen. Congratulations on your advancement to the position of Senior Director of Marketing. In my small cubicle, I gasped out at the wage number. It was almost twice as much as I had been earning. I'm Rachel, and like most people my age, I had been struggling to make ends meet before that promotion, settling school loan debt, living with a roommate, and setting aside money for infrequent get-togethers with pals. Along with my parents, Tom and Linda, and my older sister, Kate, who is married to David, I grew up in a middle-class household in Ohio. Jack and Emma are the 2 children they have. When I received the news that weekend at my parents' little 2-story house where I was raised, I contacted my mother right away. There was electricity in the air. When I got there, Kate and David were already there. With Mom's homemade lasagna and garlic bread, the kids are racing about the backyard. We discussed the projects I would be working on and my new responsibilities. It was fantastic to have my family truly thrilled for me. Excellent. My mother refilled everyone's wine cups and remarked, "You know, this year I've been considering throwing a formal Thanksgiving dinner. Your Uncle Jim, Aunt Barbara, and maybe Cousin Steve and his family are also invited, in addition to us." I took a drink of wine and remarked, "That sounds great, Mom. The only thing is," she said, her tone becoming a little cautious due to the increased number of people, "my goal was to create something unique. I saw that recipe for prime rib in my cookery magazine. However, it's really pricey. Additionally, there are the unique cheeses for the appetizers." She didn't need to, yet she didn't finish the statement. What she was saying made perfect sense to me right away. "What is the amount that you require?" I inquired. "Oh," she responded, feeling happy that I had figured it out so fast. "Just about $250 should cover the extra special ingredients." I said, "No problem," with a faint sense of pride that I could contribute to the specialness of the family get-together. "Tomorrow, I'll give it to you." The Thanksgiving meal was well received. Everyone complimented my mom on the expensive cheese platter and prime rib. After Christmas, my mother called once again. "I want to make this year's Christmas dinner extra special, Rachel, honey." I came on to these incredible recipes. It was $300 steez time. Easter didn't cause me any hesitation. The kids' gourmet chocolates and a special ham cost $350. My mom was organizing a backyard cookout for the extended family and a few neighbors for the 4th of July. By that year's Thanksgiving, something had changed. My mother stopped calling to inquire. I got a text message instead. "Hello, sweetheart, organizing a Thanksgiving meal? By Friday, $800 must be transferred." "I adore you." When I saw the amount, I hesitated, but I shrugged and transferred throughout the supper. Another fresh item caught my attention. No longer was all of the meals prepared from scratch. In between my mom's cooking were gourmet delicacies from a nearby restaurant. "These appetizers are fantastic, Mom." "A new recipe?" I inquired, well aware that they weren't manufactured by hand. "Yes, I did order them from that new downtown establishment." She waved her hand and added, "No one has time to make everything from scratch anymore. Besides, I could never do it as well as they do." My parents' get-togethers became increasingly ornate as winter gave way to spring and eventually summer once more, and the guest lists became longer. My mom cooked less and less as the cost of the food increased. The frequency and directness of the money-related texts increased. Even though I occasionally felt sick to my stomach, I had become accustomed to these expectations. By the time the next Thanksgiving drew along, I had moved into a better apartment on my own and purchased a new automobile. But my funds weren't increasing as fast as they ought to have because of those costs and the many festivities my family had. With my new income, I made the trip to my folks' place for supper 3 weeks prior to Thanksgiving. When I got there, Kate, David, and their children were already there. We sat down to dine after exchanging hugs and chatting up. For Thanksgiving, my mom suggested serving store-bought mashed potatoes. "We're going all out this year. Uncle Jim, AMP Barbara, all of the cousins, and even Great Aunt Mildred are invited." As I helped myself to green beans, I remarked, "Sounds good. I've been organizing the meal with Kate." Mom went on, "We're going to put all of our orders with that new fancy caterer. Their presentation is exquisite." "All the costs have been calculated," Kate said. "The overall cost will be around $3,000. I choked on my green beans almost. $3,000 again, I said. I had indeed misheard. "Yes," my mother said it matter-of-factly, as though we were talking about $30 instead of $3. Oh. Additionally, I extended an invitation to Cousin Steve and his family to stay with us. However, they are unable to pay for the train tickets. I assured them that you would pay for both of their trip expenses. Another $1,000. Kate's application was useful, so a total of $4,000. In closing, my mother grinned at me as though she had just asked me to get milk on the way home. With a louder voice than I had anticipated, I said, "I'm not paying $4,000 for Thanksgiving." If they hadn't been aimed at me, the shocked expressions around the table may have been hilarious. Slowly, Kate set down her fork. "You always foot the bill for the holidays, Rachel. We currently operate in this manner. Do not be challenging, Rachel." My mother's voice hardened as she spoke. "Steve already has my word that we would pay for his tickets. I've booked a table at the restaurant. That isn't my problem," I responded, feeling a surge of rage. "Before promising to use my money, you ought to have asked." "You're being self-centered," my father said, "following everything that we have done for you." "Selfish?" I said it again, raising my voice. "Do I now represent that to this family?" "Not a sister or daughter, but a walking ATM. Simply someone to pay for your gatherings." "You dare?" My mother let out a gasp. "Aren't we family?" "Family members don't behave this way with one another," so I retaliated. "Family members never demand money without even saying please or thank you." "That is untrue," my mother objected, but her face was flushed. "Is it not? By being contested. How recently have any of you inquired about my well-being? If I was content with my job? I was keeping any hopes or objectives for you. Call only when you're in need of money." The sound of my niece and nephew playing in the adjacent room, unaware of the adult drama taking place at the dinner table, was the only sound to break the tight stillness. At last, my mother's voice was icy as she spoke. "Maybe you should stop attending family get-togethers if that's how you feel." I surveyed the table. My father's eyes were fixed on his plate. Kate was agreeing with her mother by nodding. Despite his uneasy appearance, David remained silent. "All right," I murmured, tossing my napkin on the table and getting to my feet. "If that's your preference." I was on my way to my flat. My vision was obscured by tears. I kept expecting that to be called. They would see the ridiculousness of the whole thing. They were my relatives. They wouldn't actually cut me off for refusing to pay for a lavish party, surely. But as the days went by and my phone didn't ring, I started to feel sick to my stomach. As Thanksgiving drew near, it became evident that their words had been sincere. I was not invited. For financial reasons, I had been banished from my own family. Thanksgiving came to my condo alone and with a cold in the air. In anticipation of a last-minute invitation, I kept checking my phone. Nothing arrived. Around 4 p.m., my phone rang. It was an Instagram notice. My sister's post was at the top of my feed when I opened the app, and I froze. They were all there. Around my mother's dinner table were my parents, Kate, David, the children, Uncle Jim, Aunt Barbara, Cousin Steve and his family. Compared to other years, the distribution was much less ostentatious. Pies from the store rather than fine pastries. Simple turkey rather than elaborate catering. It was obvious that they had cut back without my financial support. My mother's caption was the one that hurt the most. "I'm grateful to be spending this unique day with people that genuinely cherish family." I spent a long time staring at those words. The implication is as obvious as day. My mother said I didn't appreciate family. In her account, I was the bad guy. The following day, my phone began to ring nonstop. Uncle Jim came first, followed by Aunt Barbara, then Uncle Steve. "We missed you yesterday, Rachel, honey," Uncle Jim said. "Is everything all right?" All I was doing was working. In order to avoid involving them in the family issue, I lied. Year-end tasks. You are aware of the situation. The other family members had similar discussions. Even though my parents and sister had essentially disowned me for not supporting their parties, I stuck to my story about work obligations and refused to blame them. The city became a winter wonderland as December approached. They wouldn't prolong this freeze until Christmas, would they? I bought my mom a gorgeous cashmere sweater, her favorite shade of blue, a high-end fishing rod that my dad had been eyeing, and Christmas presents for Kate and David on December 15, Jack and Emma's tickets to the theater, toys. I was certain they would fall in love. On December 23rd, I sent each gift by courier, beautifully wrapped, with a card that said, "Merry Christmas. Rachel, love." My doorbell rang on Christmas Eve the following day. I had used the same courier service for Rachel Wilson's return delivery. As he handed me my own items with the return to sender sticker placed on them, the courier stated, "My mother left me a message on my phone an hour later. Gifts from strangers are not necessary for us. Tomorrow, don't arrive." I watched holiday films and tried not to cry while eating my microwave supper by myself on Christmas Day. The months that followed went very quickly. A new year began in January, but there was no reconciliation. Valentine's Day decorations in February served as a reminder that I was no longer loved by my family, unless I had an open checkbook with me. March broke the ice between my parents and me, but not the snow. The next test was my April birthday. I didn't receive a call, text, or card from my sister or parents during the day. The only people that texted or posted on social media to divert my attention were my extended family. With the money I no longer spent on my parents' parties, I pushed myself into my career and concentrated on purchasing my own home. After looking at a lot of houses, my savings had increased considerably. I discovered a lovely condo with 2 bedrooms and sweeping views of the city park. It would need a large mortgage and was at the top of my budget, but it was worthwhile. I took a few pictures the day I moved in and shared them on Instagram with the remark, "New chapter, new home." I am really appreciative of this area. I own that. 2 weeks from now is the housewarming celebration. Welcome, family and friends. The post received a ton of likes and congratulations right away. Details concerning the housewarming celebration are being asked by friends. Family members are excited to view the location. My phone called with a number I hadn't seen in over 6 months the very following morning. Mom, hi there? I tried to sound neutral as I responded. Rachel, my mom spoke in a clear voice. Your post regarding the new flat caught my attention. Why didn't you inform us that you were purchasing real estate? I nearly burst out laughing at the foolishness. Are you serious? It had been 6 months since we last spoke. You gave my Christmas presents back. You're angry that I didn't consult you when I made real estate decisions, and you dubbed me a stranger. She dismissed it, saying, "Don't be dramatic, Rachel. All of that was simply bullshit. It's water under the bridge. I didn't think it was nonsense." My voice hardened as I said, "I refused to pay for your party, so you kicked me out of the family." She claimed that was old history. This weekend, your sister, father, and I will visit to have a look at the new location. There was no request. It was a declaration, the same way she had demanded money. "No," I answered firmly. "You're not welcome." The other end of the line fell silent in disbelief. "You're not entitled." She blew up. "Do you treat your mother this way? Following everything that I have done for you? When someone solely values me for my money account, I treat them like this," I answered, perplexed as to why I felt that way. Rekindling a relationship in which I am only an ATM is not something I'm interested in. "You're a little ungrateful." Before she could complete her statement, I hung up. The 2 weeks before my housewarming celebration went by in a flash. In the evenings, I unpacked boxes and made the condo seem like home. Making a room that was exclusively mine was liberated, and I was the only one who could make decisions. Everything was prepared by 2:00 p.m. on the day of the housewarming. As the first visitors started to show up, among the first were Uncle Jim and Barbara. "This site is really stunning, Rachel." Aunt Barbara gave me a hard embrace and gushed. "I'm really pleased with you." By 4 p.m., the celebration was in full flow. Conversations, music, and laughing filled my unit. The doorbell rang as I was in the kitchen replenishing the ice bucket. I went to answer it without looking at the individuals, assuming it was the meal delivery. My stomach sank as soon as I opened the door. Kate and my dad were standing in the hallway. Before I had a chance to speak, my mom moved ahead and shoved past me to enter my condo. We apologized for being late. As though she had been invited, she made a big announcement. The traffic was awful. "Hey, Rach," my father said behind me, avoiding making eye contact. At the doorway, Kate paused. "You have a really nice place," she added softly, giving a bottle of wine as a gesture of goodwill. I mechanically moved aside because I was too astonished to deny her admission. In fact, they had done it. Showed up without an invitation after I specifically instructed them not to. Conversations stalled in the living room as everybody took in the newcomers. My mother confidently entered the room, perhaps unaware of the atmosphere or purposefully disregarding it. For the time being, at least, I chose to be the good guy. I didn't want to spoil my housewarming with a family argument. My mother, however, had other ideas. She didn't even invite her own family. And I heard her voice above the party noise as I was showing a coworker my closet. Her own mother? Isn't it unbelievable? Excusing myself, I rushed back. With a wine glass in hand, my mother stood in the middle of the gathering and spoke to everyone. Rachel has always had a strong personality. Her speech was a little slurred as she spoke. But after all we've done for her, to cut off her family in this way, "Mom," I snapped. "It's not the right time or location." "What time or location is it?" She made a demand. "You refuse to take our calls. You refuse to attend family events. You don't even tell us when you purchase a new house." There was silence in the room. Everyone was watching us. That was it. I made an effort to be polite, but I was sick of being portrayed as the bad guy. "This is where you want to do it. All right." I spoke loudly enough to be heard by everyone. "Let me clarify why I haven't attended family get-togethers for the last 6 months. In case you were wondering, I explained in detail how my parents had begun requesting money once I was promoted, how those requests had escalated into demands, and how they had organized a lavish Thanksgiving dinner that cost $4. Without my consent, cutting me off when I refused to pay. "I was not invited to Christmas or Thanksgiving," the first went on. "They gave my Christmas presents back. We don't need presents from strangers, my mother wrote me, and now they arrive without invitation and pretend that I'm the one who left the family. My mother was red in the face. She spluttered, "That's not how it happened. Rachel is overstating things. All we wanted was for her to help." Uncle Jim cut in, "Linda," in a harsh tone, "give up. Remember how I was at Thanksgiving?" The absence of Rachel struck me as strange. You informed everyone she couldn't go because she was too busy with work and Christmas, and Barbara added that you made the same statement. Next, my family members were contacted one by one after they had inquired about my disappearance and received false information. Every statement made my mother's cheeks redder. Kate finally raised her voice. "The only thing that irritated us was Rachel's refusal to assist with Thanksgiving." "Assist!" I said it again incredulously. "You demanded $4,000 from me. That isn't beneficial. That includes paying for the entire event." My father's arm was taken by my mother. "We're heading out. I refuse to be embarrassed in front of everyone by standing here." Without saying another word, I murmured softly, "You did that to yourself, Mom." They departed from my condominium. Upon their departure from the gathering, the atmosphere was calm. Uncle Jim approached and encircled my shoulders with his arm. I apologized to Rachel for that. I was unaware of how awful things had gone. "It's not your fault," I murmured, feeling abruptly worn out. "However, it is not how family members should regard one another." He spoke aggressively. The majority of guests depart by 8 p.m. Sarah and Megan, two of my pals, stayed to assist with cleanup. "Well," Sarah remarked while collecting empty glasses, "that housewarming was undoubtedly unforgettable." Even though I was laughing, I did. It wasn't precisely what I had imagined. "Are you all right?" Megan looked at my face and questioned. "Yes, in fact, it had to be stated. I apologize for the incident that took place in front of everyone." "Don't be." Fiercely, Sarah replied. "They should have been called out for utilizing you as a cash machine and then acting as though you had left them. That's manipulation on a whole other level." I sat by myself on my new couch after they went. Uncle Jim texted me, and my phone chimed. "I am proud of you, child, not only for the new location, but also for advocating for yourself. It required courage. If you need anything, let me know." I texted back a simple thank you, and my eyes began to well up with tears. I didn't regret what had transpired, even though it was dramatic. I've been struggling for months with my family's rejection and wondering if I was being self-centered. The truth was in the open now. In this tale, I wasn't the bad guy, and I wasn't alone myself. That night, I felt lighter than I had in months when I went to bed. I was certain that I could manage my family no matter what occurred next. I had supportive family members, friends, and above all, myself. I woke up the day after the housewarming celebration to a barrage of texts from family members. The majority were encouraging. My phone rang as I was brewing coffee. My mom was the one. Curiosity overcame me, but my finger lingered over the decline button. "Hi there," I responded in a neutral tone. "You dare?" The fury in my mother's voice was high-pitched. "You have no right to make us seem so bad in front of everyone. Are you aware of the damage you have caused to my reputation?" I laughed without humor. "You're standing? You're concerned about it. Now that they know the truth, people are phoning me, inquiring, and viewing me in a different way." "I cut you off." "They are aware that I was cut off from the family because I refused to pay for your gatherings." "It didn't happen that way." She was adamant. "Mom, you're screwing everything up," I stated firmly. "I will not quarrel with you on this point. You are solely to blame for this." As like she hadn't heard me, she went on. "If only you had done what you were expected to do, help with Thanksgiving." "I will not engage in this discussion," I interrupted. "I won't continue to explain why it's irrational to demand that I spend thousands of dollars for family get-togethers without even consulting me first." My mom kept pointing the finger at me. Her tone became more and more aggressive. I'd had enough. "Dad labored until you realized that you were solely to blame for this. Therefore, I won't be in contact with you." I spoke aggressively. "I'm not your personal ATM. I'm a member of your family. Rachel." Before she could finish, I hung up and blocked her number right away. I blocked them on social media after doing the same with my father's and Kate's phone numbers. Although severe, it was required. I had had enough of being coerced and made to feel bad for advocating for myself. It's been a month since that last discussion. Checking my phone occasionally makes me half expect to see a message from one of them that somehow made it past the blocks. An acknowledgement, an apology, anything. However, nothing is present. I'm still waiting for them to acknowledge their actions, to realize that it wasn't acceptable to treat me like a walk-in bank account. I'm hoping that they will once more view me as a sister and daughter rather than as a means of supporting their social goals. Meanwhile, life continues. Now that I'm moved in, my new condo is really mine, with every photo I display and every plant I care for. With fresh herbs for cooking and flowers that brighten my mornings, my balcony garden is flourishing in the summer warmth. My job keeps me occupied and happy. The company's leadership has recognized me for my efforts in a new marketing campaign that pushes my creativity. Even though it caused unforeseen issues in my personal life, the promotion that sparked all of this family drama has ended up being all I could have ever imagined in a career. I always have a packed social itinerary. Every month, Sarah and I go trekking for a weekend to explore trails that are within a short drive from the city. I joined Megan's book club when she persuaded me to do so, and I've made new friends and read new books. I've even had a couple dates. It's enjoyable even though nothing major yet. While being cautious not to invite my parents to the same occasions, Uncle Jim and Aunt Barbara have made it a point to include me in smaller family get-togethers. They are unaware of the value of their assistance, which serves as a reminder that family need not be transactional or destructive. Particularly on calm evenings when memories come up unexpectedly, the agony is still present. I miss the family I believed I had before their priorities were exposed by my advancement. My niece and nephew, who are too little to comprehend Rachel's absence, are missed. However, the raw, stabbing heart has softened to a tolerable aching. Facebook pictures of family gatherings to which I was not invited no longer make me cry. I no longer mentally practice arguments by listing all the things I ought to have said. I've come to terms with my choice to set limits, even if doing so meant severing relationships. I'm in love. There are evenings when I sit by my panoramic windows and look at the city lights and wonder whether they would ever come. If my mother ever admits that what she did was wrong, if only my dad would have the guts to confront her. I hope they will, if Kate finally sees above her own self-interest. They are still my family in spite of everything. However, I'm not going to wait for their acceptance or permission to put my life on hold any longer. I've come to realize that my value isn't determined by how much money I'm prepared to spend on looks or dollar signs.